in Washington. Joining us from Nashville, Republican Congresswoman Diane Black of Tennessee, a member of the Tea Party caucus. Appreciate you being with us. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me this morning.
So we just heard from our Dana Bash about this bipartisan proposal from Susan Collins and Joe Manchin, this plan to fund the government, raise the debt ceiling, a temporary plan, but something. Is that something that you would vote for? Because frankly, one of the bills that you put forth is included in that in terms of verification under Obamacare.
Well, I certainly like that part of it. That's the no subsidies without verification. And that just holds the administration accountable for what was in the Affordable Care Act. And that is the fact that you have to verify someone's income before you give them a government subsidy, which is the hard-earned taxpayer dollars ultimately. And so that is a part of that.
Looking at the plan as a whole, as it stands now, is that something you think you would back?
I need to look at all of the plan, because what's so important, as your previous guest has said, is that we have got to deal with our deficit spending and ultimately our debt. And that means structural changes to our entitlement programs. And so I really need to make sure that that's a part of it, because we cannot continue to spend the way we are. We're hitting that debt ceiling at $17 trillion, and this is not good for our country. As a matter of fact, Poppy, what will happen is if we don't do something about this, eventually there won't be a solution, and we will be downgraded, absolutely. So we must do something sooner than later.
I want to talk about that in one moment, but this is really a short-term plan. I mean, this extends the debt limit until the end of January 2014. This funds the government at that annual rate of $986 billion for 6 months. So looking at this short-term plan, we're literally like 60 hours away. Is this something that you would back, as you understand it now?
I would like to see a little bit more in there, and the piece that I'd like to see in there is more leverage from our side on making sure that we are dealing with the deficit spending and ultimately our debt. And a part of that also would be tax reform. So I'd like to see those two things added to it. I certainly don't want to say yes or no that I will vote for any plan until it's in front of me. They change minute by minute.
I want to talk, you talked about downgrading the credit of this country, and that's something that we saw happen, a very historic thing, a very painful thing for this country, frankly, back in 2011 when we saw the same fighting over raising the debt ceiling, and the S&P, I mean, I have their explainer right here of why they downgraded our credit, and part of it was, frankly, because Washington couldn't get along and couldn't get a long-term deal, and now we don't have one. So much is at risk. The credit rating of this country, jobs in this country, so many people not working right now because of it. Are you concerned, looking at this from where you sit, that your party isn't going to be able to recover from this? There was this new NBC Wall Street Journal poll that recently came out, and by a 22-point margin, more people that were surveyed blamed the GOP in Congress than the White House for the partial shutdown. How concerned are you about how the American people are reading this for your party?
Listen, there's plenty of blame to go around. There's blame for us, there's blame for Harry Reid, and there's blame for the president, who is supposed to be the leader of this country. We started on September the 20th, sending plans to Harry Reid and the Democrats. 4 different plans they received, and yet they were unwilling to come to the table and negotiate. And we're back at that same place we were a number of years ago, where the Democrats don't want to deal with the spending issue, because you have to go in and deal with the entitlements. It's tough. But we were downgraded because there was not a long-term solution. Now, we have got to deal with that, because one way or another, this country is going to deal with it. And the longer we wait to deal with it, the harder it is to deal with it. And so we were ready on September the 20th. We've been sending plan after plan. And it's the Democrats who shut down this government, not the Republicans. We need to get the message out there, the truth of the matter of who shut down this government.
Do you think that there is going to be some sort of deal reached in the next 60 hours, in the next 3 days? Do you feel that from where you're sitting?
You know, we have never in the House wanted the government to be shut down. We certainly want to get the debt taken care of. We want to get all of these things moving forward, because this is hurting the American people. But that's what happened by not passing a continuing resolution. I mean, that's what happened. We knew without passing a budget that's what would happen. We sent that continuing resolution over to Harry Reid. Look, they're not the only ones that have to say what's going to happen in this country. We need to come together. That's where our Constitution is written, that the House and the Senate would negotiate with one another and that we'd negotiate with the President. They are the ones who refuse to come to the table. And we're not going to write a blank check to the President. And so there has got to be conversation between all 3 of these entities in order to get this done. We've been working on doing that since September the 20th. Where are they? They're just now coming to the table. And by the way, the president said he would be willing to have a short-term debt ceiling increase, and we went over to talk to him at the White House, and nothing came of that. That's because he wants his way or the highway. This is not good for the American people. We have got to have people around the table, as we've been asking them since September the 20th, to sit down and talk about this. We never want to shut the government down, and we want to move forward. But we're not going to give the president a blank check.
Representative Diane Black, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. I really hope that both parties can come to some sort of agreement soon. Thank you for your time.
I certainly do, too. Thank you, Poppy, for having me.